Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-host, Jeff Mack, Newmark Knight Frank, Drew Hanlon, Ethan Milrod, GoTo, David Jackwitz, Evolution Financial Group, and David Birdwell, TopStack. Jeff, can you give us a rundown on who we have on the air today, please?
Sure, Herb. We have a great lineup. Keisha Jordan is the Executive Director of Children's Scholarship Fund. Denise Napier is the President and CEO of Health Partners Plans. Sean Feeney is the CEO of a company called Cantaloupe. And John Strotbeck is the CEO of Boathouse Sports.
Let's get to our first guest, Keisha Jordan, Executive Director, Children's Scholarship Fund. Keisha, what is Children's Scholarship Fund?
Children's Scholarship Fund is the largest K-8 scholarship program in Pennsylvania. We've served 28,500 students in 20 years.
Wow. Where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
I was born in Philadelphia and primarily grew up in Westchester, Pennsylvania, lived with my parents and a younger sister.
Mm-hmm. And why did you guys move from Philadelphia to Westchester?
Partly because my father worked at Cheney University in Westchester, but also because my parents wanted me to have a really great school district with a great academic program.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. What's that have to do with who you are nowadays?
Well, interestingly, I help families to make those same choices, be it private schools in Philadelphia or otherwise.
Drew?
Keisha, why was education so important to your parents?
My parents were both, my father was a first-generation college goer. My mother never got to go to college, being one of 8 children and growing up in South Philly. So they knew the value, especially for a girl, of getting a solid education.
And what was the impact on you?
Well, I knew the sacrifices that they made. I knew that it was important to them, and it became really important to me. I wanted to please my parents.
Mm-hmm. Jeffrey?
So, Keisha, what did your father do for a living?
My father worked more than 30 years at Cheney University and in many different capacities as a leader.
Did you ever go to work with your dad at Cheney?
I did, and loved it.
What did you learn from your dad that you're using at CSF today?
I learned commitment and service from my father. He was very dedicated and also committed to serving those students.
Mr. Jackwitz?
Tell us, Keisha, about your mom. What did your mom do?
My mom broke all kinds of glass ceilings at the Xerox Corporation, where she worked for 20 years, being a woman without a college degree and winning President's Club and many other awards.
Mm-hmm. Ethan?
Keisha, what was your favorite subject in school?
I loved anything having to do with reading and writing.
What was it about reading and writing that you loved?
I loved stories. I loved learning about other people and experience, and loved writing as well.
Can you remember one of your favorite books?
Anything Judy Blume. I was a girl in the 70s and 80s, and that was my love.
Mm-hmm. What did your love of reading and writing have to do with what you're doing nowadays?
I'm a communicator, for sure. I love hearing the stories of our families, especially the success stories once they've received a scholarship.
Mm-hmm. David Burwell?
Keisha, what was your relationship like with your sister?
I think like most sisters, it was a best friends, worst enemies relationship. We were very, very different and sometimes had conflicts.
And what's that have to do with how you're running the organization today?
I think that taught me a lot about how to have a close relationship with someone who is different than you. And I try to value diversity and inclusion in my staff and the work that we do today.
Mm-hmm. Jeffrey?
Keisha, in the green room, you told us that you published the school newspaper in 4th grade. What did that teach you about connecting people and communicating?
Well,
and how does that relate to what you're doing as the CEO of CSF?
I identified a need. There was no newspaper. How boring not to be able to tell our stories. And, today we tell the stories of our families as well, those success stories.
And are you connecting people?
Absolutely. We're connecting families to scholarships and education, and we're connecting donors to a cause that means a lot to them.
So kind of getting the story out just like you did in 4th grade.
You're right, Jeff. Absolutely.
Mr. Jackwitz?
You mentioned in the green room that you and your sister were the only 2 students of color in Westchester at the time. How did that impact who you are today?
At our school, we really were the only students of color that I remember at our elementary school. So it taught me that sacrifice that my parents made so that we could have a good education. It couldn't have been easy for them, and it wasn't easy for us, but it was what they chose and what helped us to get a great foundation.
Ethan, Drew?
Keisha, where did this, the importance of doing service come from?
Sure, I certainly got that from my father and his work at Cheney. I've been involved in Girl Scouts. I'm part of a service sorority and have always had service at my heart. I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Can you recall a time, ages 8 to 14, when you did something of service that really stuck with you?
I think my real memories of service were in college, where I was involved with a group that helped teen moms. So I think that was really impactful for me and a foundation for the work I do now.
That really set you on the path, huh?
Yeah.
What were you doing with teen moms?
It was a program that connected college students with teen moms for mentoring.
It's the same thing with you over and over again. It's giving back. It's connecting. It's what is that? What am I reading here?
It's a passion of mine. I believe in service and helping. I'm an empathetic person. I can't stand the idea of a parent not being able to give the child the best that they can, and I want to help.
Where'd that come from?
I think it came in part from my faith and wanting to serve, but certainly came from role models who I had in my life, especially, I'd say, my father.
Uh-huh. Drew?
Keisha, I wanted to just go back to your mom for a sec. You saw, as you were growing up, you said she was breaking through glass ceilings at Xerox. What did that mean to you to see your mom doing that?
It meant a lot, and it showed me the value of hard work, because she worked hard, and I watched her at home practicing her demos for sales. It taught me that if you work really hard, you can achieve your goals.
And what do you bring to the Children's Scholarship Fund from your mom every day?
I think I bring that determination, that value of hard work. It's not easy what we do, and I learned that from her. I learned that from her as a role model. Also, how to carry yourself and really represent what you care about.
And I just want to go back to Cheney real quick. Cheney has a real culture and sense of pride to it. What about that culture do you love?
Well, I love that Cheney gives students who may not have the opportunity for college a chance to do so. That's super important. And that's the end goal for us at CSFP.
Mm-hmm. Faith?
Yep. Brought up Catholic, and that's really a foundation for my life.
Why? What's that have to do with what you're doing?
Well, I believe in blessings. I believe in a higher calling, and I know that we are all meant to be the best that we can be. And I believe in giving all students, regardless of income, that opportunity.
So you're like the master mother. You're trying to help everybody all the time do everything, aren't you?
I do the best that I can. I think it's my responsibility.
Your responsibility?
Absolutely. We all have a responsibility to serve and give back. I didn't grow up rich, but I grew up with a family who loved me and sacrificed to do everything they could for me, and I want other families to do the same.
Keisha, what does it mean to you when you see some of the kids that you make a difference for? Do you have an opportunity to see that?
It means the world. A student who I knew all throughout his younger grades in high school just finished a law degree, a degree that I have as well, and that makes me so proud.
I bet.
What really lights your fire, Keisha, every day when you walk in the front door? What lights your fire about what you're doing?
I love the sense that I'm giving parents, other parents like me, an opportunity to do the best for their kids. Our families otherwise might not be able to do that because of their financial situation.
Mm-hmm. But the good thing about your job is it's, 9 to 5 and you got a fancy office and you don't have to work weekends, right?
That's funny. No, we work very hard. We work very hard. Anyone who knows fundraising knows that is a hard job with a lot of hours.
Mm-hmm. Where's the money coming from to run this organization?
We have gifts from multiple donors, both individuals, foundations, and then through the state tax credit program, we have corporate donors.
And the website address for this organization known as Children's Scholarship Fund is?
csfphiladelphia.org.
Let me have that one more time.
csfphiladelphia.org.
We've been speaking with Keisha Jordan, who's the Executive Director of Children's Scholarship Fund in Philadelphia. Website address one more time is?
csfphiladelphia.org.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. That's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Please stick around. We'll be back in a moment right after this quick break.
Recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, Executive Leaders Radio. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Simply visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable. Yes, this radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors for free exposure.
We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Denise Napier, President and CEO of Health Partners Plans. Denise, what is Health Partners Plans? What are you guys doing?
We are a health insurance company that services the Medicaid, Medicare, and CHIP population in Southeast Pennsylvania. We service 280,000 members, and I have about 900 employees working for us.
Whoa. Where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
I am one of three children. It's all three girls, and grew up in Overbrook Park in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. You're the middle child, huh? What did being in the middle of three girls do to you?
It made me be very competitive because I had to figure out a way of how to stand out, being the middle child.
Mm-hmm. What else did it do to you? You said something about caretaker?
Yes, I actually became the caretaker. I always took care of actually my older sister, my younger sister, and then as I grew older, my parents.
Uh-huh. So you were the caretaker. Uh-huh. And you're competitive. David?
Denise, was there a situation or something that forced you into that caretaker role?
I actually began working. I started volunteering at the age of 12 at a nursing home, and I really developed this sense of compassion for people. And I really wanted to make sure that my family was supported because I saw the elderly and what they had to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
So how does that connect to your position today?
I actually take care of those that are in a disadvantaged position, whether it's from low income or chronically ill.
Mm-hmm. Ethan?
Denise, you mentioned as a middle child that you had to stand out. How did you do that? How did you stand out?
I was very competitive with my sisters. My father used to drill us in math. And even when I was in kindergarten, I was doing multiple the times tables to beat my older sister out. I just wanted my parents to be proud of me, and that's the way that I was able to stand out.
Mm-hmm. What did it mean to you that when you did that, and how does that prepare you for what you're doing today?
You know, I always sought my father's approval and in being very competitive, and he really gave me this great work ethic. Both my mother and my father did, which really drove me to success.
Mm-hmm. Drew?
Denise, your dad, he really set the bar high and had high expectations. What was the impact of that at a young age?
Really made me realize that both my mother and father did not graduate high school, and they wanted better for me. And so I was the first out of all three children to be able to get a bachelor's and a master's degree. Again, it was that drive that they instilled in me.
And you mentioned when your father was sick, he asked you if you got this big CEO job. What did that feel like when he wanted to know that?
Yeah, he was in the trauma unit with brain injury. And that was the first question he asked me when I went to see him. And that just wowed me of how selfless of a person that is. And what a parent really does is constantly worry about their children, no matter what age.
What do you take from that experience to work every day? That
everything that you do is really to give to other people. Don't worry about yourself. That the rewards will come when you give.
Jeffrey?
Denise, in the green room, you mentioned that you were a registered nurse as an early career. What has being a registered nurse and that experience brought to you as skills to be an active CEO?
I really focus on improving lives. And having that compassion and that focus on improving both the physical health and the mental health really makes people have a better lifestyle.
And in approving some of the things that you have to approve for patients, does it give you more of a connection and an understanding of what they need?
It does. And you have to really wrap in these socioeconomic barriers for them to receive care. So you're really looking at the total person and how to help them in their everyday life.
Mm-hmm. David?
Denise, you told us that you have 900 employees currently, and the caretaker theme has been consistent in your life. How do you correlate those two today?
I think that you have to take care of your employees. You definitely have to make sure that they have a healthy working environment and really give that life-work balance.
Mm-hmm. Earlier in the green room, we were just getting to know each other. You mentioned that your sister, when she was in her 40s, developed a disability. She developed a brain tumor, and that you put yourself in a position where you could take care of them. So as opposed to being felt put upon or an obligation, it just felt to me like you were looking forward to taking care of your family members. Am I reading that correctly? And where's that coming from?
Yeah, we were a very close family, and it was instilled in us that family is always first. And so it was an obligation that came very natural to me, that you just take care of each other. You don't put them away somewhere. You just take care of each other. And again, it's giving. And that's really what the rewarding thing is to make sure that people live with dignity and that they die with dignity.
What's rewarding? I thought the reason people took on the responsibility or the role or the long hours and the grief and aggravation of being the CEO is to make a lot of money. What are you talking about? What's rewarding?
The rewarding piece is when you hear that you've made a difference in somebody's life. When somebody says, thank you, because I was now able to get my vaccination. Thank you for the care that you've given me now that my diabetes is under control. It's those types of things that are rewarding.
How long have you been with Health Partners Plans?
I've been with them this stint 5 years, but I was with them previously back in 2004 to 2006.
Why do you find that organization so special, and why do you find it rewarding with this organization?
Well, we are a not-for-profit organization, and the mission of really changing lives and transforming the communities is really what my vision is as well.
What's your vision?
To improve healthcare, to change the way that we give healthcare, and to make sure that people are getting their preventative care so that they can live longer and healthier and quality lives.
Mm-hmm. Drew?
It's like, what part of your parents, setting the bar high, but also being very proud, does that influence the culture at your work?
Oh, it absolutely does, because I've learned from my parents that you give recognition and you give love and you give support so somebody else can succeed. Because I've had that mentor in my life, I need to be that mentor to other people.
And when you're faced with a tough decision, what do you hear your dad whispering in your ear?
Make the best decision you can. Don't be afraid to fail. And you have to take risks in life in order to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Denise, you had a rich experience growing up as three girls, and you have a son and a daughter. You were telling me earlier. What have you learned from your kids?
I've learned that creativity is really key to change and to the future. And you have to be really open to new things.
What are their names?
Raymond Jr. and Monica.
Thank you.
Ethan?
And Denise, I'm just wondering to the younger listening audience out there, especially the young girls out there listening, what type of advice would you give them?
Follow your dreams and don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it, because you can.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Jackowitz, what's your first instinct there? Mm-hmm. You're on mute, David. Denise, what's the best part of your job?
Seeing the smiling faces on our children and on our adults who are sick, getting the care that they need, and seeing my employees being able to raise their families and not really be stressed at work, because we provide that environment that is an enjoyable workforce. Your middle name is of service, isn't it? It is. And it's something that I've had since I was very, very young. And I enjoy serving people. Mm-hmm. It sounds to me like you're in a position to serve how many families, how many people? We have 280,000 Medicaid, Medicare, and CHIP recipients in the Southeast Pennsylvania area. Boy, you are built for your job. This organization's fortunate to have you, with your organizational abilities and your sense of service. You're the perfect pick for this gig. What's the website address? HealthPartnersPlans.com. We've been speaking with Denise Napier, President and CEO of Health Partners Plans, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Sean Feeney, the CEO of Cantaloupe. Sean, what is Cantaloupe? What are you guys doing?
Herb, we have 18,000 customers and over 1 million points of sale, and we serve the unattended retail space. And what we're trying to do is help the world buy it and go. Mm-hmm. And where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters? And where are you in the pecking order? Herb, I'm from a tiny town in upstate New York, Attica, New York, halfway between Buffalo and Rochester. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. I have myself, 2 sisters, and then 2 brothers. Uh-huh. Jeffrey? So growing up in Attica, what did your dad do for a living, Sean? Jeff, my dad was the high school principal of the school I went to. And so what was it like being a kid in the school where your dad's the principal? In a small town. If you can think about having a spotlight on you 24 hours a day, 365, and everyone knowing what you're accomplishing and what you're failing, that was what it was like. So what do you take to work every day that you learned in a small town being a student at the school with your dad as the principal? Well, the thing that I take to work every day is I have 175 families I'm responsible for, and making sure that I'm leading the organization and taking care of my 3 key constituents: customers, shareholders, and my employees. So you're the guy in charge. Was your dad critical? How was he as a father? My dad was in charge, very much in a small town. Everybody gets involved in helping other people. What I saw him do was develop, young students, take people who needed help, give them additional help, not ask for credit from that. I saw people come back years later and thank my dad for making them who they were. And, it's one of the things I think about. I'm most proud of the employees that I took, maybe turned them around, turned them into future CFOs, CEOs, those sort of things. Ethan. So, Sean, there you were, son of the principal at school and in the spotlight. How did you cope and deal with that? Well, I also had a number of other leadership positions. I was the quarterback on the football team, point guard on the basketball team, president of the student council. I didn't hide from it, but there were high expectations, and my dad probably had higher expectations than anyone. And he was a pusher. It was not a warm, cuddly relationship. It was one of, we expect great things. Here's where you're making it. Here's where you're not. Constant feedback loop, but high expectations. How did being in the spotlight prepare you for your future? Well, this was my 4th CEO job, and there's no hotter spotlight than being the guy in charge, whether you're working for a private equity firm, whether you're working for public shareholders. or leading your employees. And, I think that was the bedrock of many of the things I do today.
Mm-hmm. David?
So Sean, what sports did you play growing up, and what were your roles on the team?
David, I played all sports, but I played football in the fall, basketball in the winter, and baseball in the spring. And I played the hot positions: quarterback from when I was 7 years old through high school, point guard on the basketball team, shortstop on the baseball team. Many say, look, Sean, you're always in the center of the action, and that's what I like.
So how do you think that ties into your position today?
Well, I think from a very young age, I was used to being responsible and having people critique my actions, realizing that when you make a mistake, you've got to go to the next play. And as a leader on a team, people are looking for you, for your attitude and your positive outlook, whether things are going well or going bad. It's easy to be the leader when you're up 4 or 5 runs or 4 or 5 touchdowns. When you're down, that's when your leadership and character are exposed.
Mm-hmm. Drew?
Speaking of that, did you have any coaches that you really looked up to or that inspired you?
I had many coaches, Drew, that both good and bad. And I'm a big believer that you learn from good leaders and you take what bad leaders do and you try not to do that. And, I've had any number of coaches, and then I was an Army officer and saw all sorts of leadership in different points and into my business career as well.
What were a few of those lessons that you learned?
I learned that you could be incredibly tough, but still empathetic. And, I watched coaches who, coached the best players really well, but didn't handle the guys who sat at the end of the bench and didn't make them part of the team. And so I'm very conscious of, my stars. I push them harder than anyone else, but you've got to bring the rest of the organization along to really accomplish great things.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned empathy and your mom in the green room. Tell us about your mom and the word that you just used.
My mom was kind of the softer side of the parents. So my dad was a pusher. After every basketball game, he'd basically go play by play on what I did and didn't do. My mom just said, you played great.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, wasn't there something about West Point you wanted to get to know more about?
We were talking earlier, Sean, in the green room, that you went to West Point. Why did you go there, and what was the experience like, and what do you take from that to work every day at Cantaloupe?
I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, Jeff, but I knew I wanted to do something big. And to do that, I needed to go to a good school. And I had an opportunity. I was exposed by my dad and the guidance counselor to West Point. From a tiny little town, we had 2 guys go the year before. But I thought it would put me in position to do something. And it also gave me a career where I didn't have to pick it until after I'd served 5 years on active duty in the military.
So what do you remember from that you take to work at Cantaloupe?
What I take to work at Cantaloupe is when you're in charge, be in charge. 2, that failure is not terminal. One of the things at West Point, they force you to fail and then recover from that. And then last thing is, make decisions and then violently execute them. And those are probably the 3 key things I've taken to work every day.
Mm-hmm. Drew, Ethan?
Sean, you said something that I thought was really fascinating, something I really believe, and that's that, it's not just about the all-stars, but kind of the middle of the pack or maybe the guys sitting on the bench are really important too. Why is that?
Well, because they're part of the organization, and the organization is as strong as it can be. And, if you look at it, I believe an organization is like a fist. When it's made into a fist, it's very powerful. When it's 5 individual fingers, it's not powerful at all. And sooner or later, the organization, whether it's a team or a business, is going to call on everyone in the organization to do something. And so if you've got someone who you've ignored, who now is in a critical customer situation, a critical sales position, they're not going to be prepared. And they got to feel like they're part of the team. You've got to work with them because the middle part really moves the organization.
What does that mean to you when you see one of those people that you coached up like that make a difference?
No better feeling in the world.
Why is that?
Well, because you've taken and developed someone, you put them in a position to succeed, and they've succeeded. I mean, that's what a leader is. It's putting that organization in a place to win. And whether that's a coach, whether that's a CEO, whether that's a manager, whether that's the guy at Burger King trying to make sure the burgers come out, it's putting your people in position to be successful.
Sean, I understand that this is the 3rd or 4th CEO job you've had, and you've been brought into these positions. They got to know you. They got to know you what you've done previously. They wanted you. It wasn't like it was a blind hire. and I don't think anybody fired you. So you probably have done very well financially. Why don't you just go to Florida and relax?
I did that for a little while, and I got bored and realized I love being in a leadership position. I love figuring out puzzles, and I've been trained to be a good leader, and I just do kind of what I do, and we try to leave the organization a better place than what we found it.
How young were you when you took an organization the next step, 8 to 14 years old? Give us an example.
I talked a little bit about the sports stuff, but I was also president of the student council in my high school. I had to work with my dad as the leader of the student body. And one of the things I was most proud of, I ran on bringing the school newspaper back to life that had been shut down. I hired a staff. We built it into it was the best daily newspaper in our high school.
So you have this thing in you since you were a kid of getting involved with stuff and taking it to the next level, cleaning it up. Is that what you meant by you enjoy a puzzle? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think, everything that you encounter in life is part of figuring it out. And for one reason or another, I like doing that. And I'm pretty good at pulling all the disparate pieces and figuring out how to go forward with it. So it's just something that I've developed or I was born with. I'm not sure.
So part of the fundamental tenet, one of the fundamental legs to Cantaloupe is some technology you guys developed. But it doesn't sound to me like in terms of the puzzle pieces, you're focusing on the extreme details in the puzzle pieces. It seems to me you're focusing on the people all the time. Am I right about that or am I mistaken?
Yeah, I'm not a technologist. I look at myself as an operator and basically setting a vision, setting how we're going to get there, holding people accountable and leading the organization. And I have a very simple thing when we need to turn something around. There's people there that know what's going on. There's people getting in their way. I try to get rid of the people getting in their way as fast as I can.
So you're really all about building the team. What's the website address for this organization known as Cantaloupe?
It's Cantaloupe.com. Very simple.
Cantaloupe.com. We've been speaking with Sean Feeney, who's the CEO of Cantaloupe here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, we'll be back in a moment, right after this quick break.
You now can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your advisors. Yes, this radio and online social media exposure is free and quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors.
Back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce John Strotbeck, CEO of Boathouse Sports. John, what is Boathouse Sports?
Herb, thanks for having me on. Boathouse Sports is the premier brand of custom athletic apparel made for teams and schools nationwide and abroad. We produce everything in the USA, in North Philadelphia. We deliver to about 7,000 schools nationwide, 500,000 teams, and about 10 million athletes.
Where you from originally? Where'd you grow up as a kid? How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
I grew up in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I'm the oldest of three sons.
All righty. Ethan.
John, paint a picture for our listening audience. What was life like growing up in Atlantic City? We call it around here down the shore. What was that?
I typically don't call it. I call it the beach because I grew up on the beach. But growing up on an island, which Atlantic City is the north end of Absecon Island, was an incredibly wondrous, inspirational, and exciting place to be because we basically could roam the island or the oceans freely without our parents worrying about where we were, what we were doing, just as long as we came home at night. And by that, I mean, we used to we'd take our little boats and we would with our little 10 or 25 horsepower engines, power down to Cape May, come back late at night, or we would swim miles out in the ocean by ourselves when we were 10 years old. And our parents didn't really worry where we were. They just knew we would come back.
What did that experience mean to you, and how did it influence your life?
I think it influenced me because it made me fearless and independent, and gave me a great realization that you could do a lot of things when obstacles were out there, you could overcome them if you put your mind to it.
Drew?
Speaking about fearless and independent, you were a 2-time Olympian. Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure. I rowed 1 year in high school at Atlantic City High School, 4 years in college, had a very successful career, but graduated, never thought I'd row again. A job brought me to Philadelphia 2 years later, and I started rowing out of Vesper Boat Club just for fun, but realized how well I was doing without trying, and set a goal on trying to make the Olympic team in 1984. And I had grown up on the water, so I was a waterman. I knew how to move an object through the water, but I was small as a rower, and I didn't come from a very large school, so there were a tremendous amount of obstacles in the way. I paid no attention to them. I was told more than a few times that I wouldn't make the team, but I just plowed forward, and I did make the team and became part of the core of the national team for the next 8 years.
What was the impact of that experience on what you do every day?
Well, for Boathouse, it was literally and figuratively. Figuratively, I realized that I can accomplish a lot of things that people tell you cannot. And with Boathouse, as I said, we manufacture everything in Philly, USA. In the early days of Boathouse, I approached a lot of New York apparel people. They said, you can't make it in the USA. You can't make custom. You can't do this. You can't do that. I thought, why not? Went ahead and did it anyway. Most of them are now out of business. On the literal side, as I was walking into the Olympic Games in 1984 in the opening ceremonies, just in front of Michael Jordan and Patrick Ewing, I decided then and there that I was going to quit my corporate job, the job that brought me to Philly, and train for a gold medal in 1988. I did quit my job in February of 1985, realized about 2 days later I had to eat, and Boathouse was born.
Jeffrey?
Tell us about mom and dad in Atlantic City. What was your dad doing? And tell us about your mom as well, John.
My father was born and raised there and grew up in the family restaurant business. And he was a very tough, unrelenting German who most things were negative. My mother was the opposite. She was a very kind, soft-spoken English woman who was inspiring and positive, and really the person that influenced me the most going forward in life.
And who are you most like?
I can accomplish anything.
Are you more like mom or dad?
I would say I'm more like my mother. Mm-hmm. But I got my father's athletic genes.
And did you go to work with your dad in the restaurants?
I went to work when I was 10 years old. I was paid $5 a night and realized a week later I was being paid less than minimum wage at the time.
So I guess how does that influence how you pay your people?
Well, we have normally this time of year about 240 people in the factory, though COVID has challenged our two primary markets. But we pay living wage plus health benefits and a 401k. We treat our people very well.
Mm-hmm. David J.
I get this theme throughout the conversation that if somebody tells you can't do something, you're all over it to prove that you can. Where does that come from?
I guess I'm I think, and I remember being told that I was anti-authoritarian, so I was always trying to buck the trend. I also learned early on that taking the harder road is, while it's more difficult, less people will follow you. And I'm contrarian by nature.
Mm-hmm. David B.
John, you told us that the family had a restaurant. What do you bring from that into your business today?
Yeah, so a whole lot of things. Number one is it was a restaurant that served very good food, so I understood the quality of product and how quality. If you have a quality product, you always have a business. I don't care what the product is, Number two is service, and the restaurant business, you have to service people, and in fact, while our business is very complicated and very competitive, I always use restaurant analogies to teach all our employees how to deliver to people, how to service people, because everybody can relate to a meal in a restaurant and whether they liked it or not and why.
Mm-hmm. Drew, Ethan, Jeffrey?
What's the future looking like for this business that you own, John?
Boathouse Sports, well, we've been under siege from the shoe brands for the past 15 years, but COVID has made things a lot more difficult, but we're using COVID. I pivoted once to get into PPE when we were shut down by the governor of Pennsylvania. We pivoted very quickly and we were delivering medical PPE to hospitals within 10 days of when we were shut down.
You've diversified.
We diversified. Now what I've done since is I've actually brought in a new CEO, Cindy DePetrantonio, which is Cindy is a rock star who helped build Jones of New York for Sidney Kimmel. And Cindy took over as CEO about 6 months ago. I still have a day job, so I'm still there. But she's moving the company towards more of a consumer brand. We're not getting out of the team business, but we want to build a consumer brand of Made in USA product for all athletic enthusiasts.
Why is Made in USA important to you, John?
Made in USA, I started because I felt, this is 30 years ago, we're making in USA and in Philadelphia specifically because I felt we could control the quality of the product. And most of our product for 30 years was custom made, bespoke apparel, so small batches of custom apparel specifically for team athletes. But it's all been about making a better quality product. And ironically, today, with COVID, I think more people are interested in Made in USA, and there's a lot of things that are people trying to reshore. Mm-hmm. We can make a very high quality product in North Philadelphia, better than a lot of top brands out there, and really sell it for less. So people think Made in USA is more, but it doesn't have to be.
Ethan, Drew?
John, if we go back to your rowing days, what would your teammates tell us about you?
Very competitive, driven, team player, quiet, and committed to the team.
Did you have any coaches in those days that really inspired you?
My high school coach, who came from Holy Spirit High School, grabbed me by the shirt literally my junior year and said, "You're going to row next year for me," because I was 6'2", which isn't that tall for rowing. And then my college coach was a very soft-spoken Ohioan, Marietta College in Ohio, who barely said anything, but he had learned training techniques from the East Germans. And then my Olympic coach was Chris Korzanowski, was a Polish expatriate who came to the U.S. in 1984. All three had tremendous impact on me. And Garbett and Korzanowski are still good friends. The other coach passed away.
Drew?
What do you bring with them to work every day that they taught you?
Pardon me?
What do you bring with you to work that those coaches taught you?
A winning attitude, a commitment to the team, drive. Mm-hmm. Don't settle for anything but the best.
John, what's the website address for Boathouse Sports?
Boathouse.com.
We were speaking with John Strotbeck, CEO of Boathouse Sports here on Executive Leaders Radio. Jeffrey, can you give us a rundown on who else we had the opportunity of speaking with today?
Great show today, Herb. Keisha Jordan, Executive Director, Children's Scholarship Fund. Denise Napier, President and CEO, Health Partners Plans. Sean Feeney, CEO of Cantaloupe. And John Strotbeck, CEO of Boathouse Sports.
I'd like to thank my co-hosts, including Jeff Mack, Newmark Knight Frank, Drew Hanlon, Ethan Milrod, Go2, David Jackowitz, Evolution Financial Group, and David Birdwell, Top Stack, for giving me a hand structuring the questions. Hope you're providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. That's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today, and do have a nice day. Bye-bye.